Now, we've set up the enrichment, and what we want to do next is fill out the fields, and we'll go through them one by one. So you get an idea and an understanding of how to prompt Twain, because it actually takes much less than using a GPT or Claude API call. So we are starting in this example. You see that I'm using my own API key. I'm using my custom sequence ID, and we'll get to the custom sequence ID in the next step. What we need is a first name. You'll see this, I have it in my clay table, and a prospect description. Everything else is optional. The reason why we need these two is because these are essential to personalize each message. Now, you can see here, this is pretty straightforward. Under prospect description, I am writing a very, very simple instruction. And the way you should communicate with Twain is in a way that you always think about a prompt like an instruction. So for example, I'm using a word like use, and then I'll say use job title and skill, which we looked up with Prospeo, to personalize the message to the person we are messaging. Make it clear that this message is only written for them. Now you'll notice something else. I am mentioning message 3 times. I am using extremely simple language, and I'm being very crystal clear. So you'll always have to assume that every prompt should be very simple, very short, and always using the exact same word when describing something. So let me give you an example of what would be confusing. Something that would be confusing would be like if I'd say, to personalize the email to the person we are messaging, make it clear that this text is only written for them. So I'm using 3 different words to describe a message. So please always, this is a general recommendation for prompting. Make it super clear and easy to understand to spot for the AI to spot your exact instruction. So you'll see here, everything else has this optional in the title. You can see through them. And now we'll go through these optional fields. I have a trigger and signal, and if you remember in a previous video, I described the idea and intent and reason for reaching out for this specific lead list. So you can see here, the reason Twain might be relevant to them is because they work with company name, and you'll see that it's instantly Clay and Smart Lead as lead job title, right? So a very simple description of why we are reaching out. And then I'm adding important note because I myself preemptively noticed, oh, it might be that this could be misunderstood as their primary job primary job. So this is not their main job occupation. They have a partnership with company name. So I'm giving some extra instructions to make sure that Twain knows, oh no, you should not mention that they are working as a partner at Clay, as an example. Now, the next one is a sequence-wide instruction. This might be your own preference, your corporate identity preference that you want Twain to mention specific words or not mention specific words. This will be applied sequence-wide, right? And this is in this example, I just wanted to mention something that to give you like an idea of what to use. For example, something very typical that we see is use British English or use US English. I personally don't like the words I see or hearing. So I'm just saying, hey, please don't open with this with your first sentence. That's a very simple sequence instruction, and that's it. I'm not adding anything else. Keeping it simple and also giving just a singular instruction helps follow the instruction. And that's actually something for anyone who used the previous integration might have mentioned that it was not following these instructions very well. So that's something we worked on to make sure that it follows your instructions much better. This is not the place to give length instructions, not the place to give structure instructions, and I'll get to that in the next video. So sender company name is also very important. Why is it important? It is optional, but why is it important and helpful? It is because something that AI still struggles with sometimes is to correctly reference the right name. It could be like a prospect name. It could be a company organization name at the right place. So we are adding some context by mentioning, hey, this, by the way, is the company name. Then, of course, sender ideal customer profile. I wrote something here, but you could easily just reference the title, right? Like the lead title, for example, or their summary or whatever, like anything that describes, hey, who they are. So that way you could actually run on a single, let's say you have different ICP in one table. That would be the place where you do these references. And that way you can personalize it and put multiple ICP in one table. And from that moment on, moving downwards, you can do this for every single one of the fields. And that's why I love Clay, because you can now personalize everything. So I'm writing these statements because this Clay table is only 222 rows. So it's very narrow and it has a very high intent signal. But I can't endlessly scale it because there aren't endless amounts of like creator and partner and stuff like that, right? So this is like very high intent and very relevant, but let's say I want to scale it and I want to reach a bigger audience. I might not be able to be this specific, and I might have to say, okay, I need to like reference the right column, and that way it allows me to personalize it even for thousands of people and describing specifically for them a problem that they might be facing. Now, you'll see here something I just want to mention, social proof, because in a later step of this video series, I'll show you how to very, very simply just test 3 different approaches for social proof, because in my experience, that's something where you can really win, where you make sure that the social proof you mention is very relevant to this one specific prospect. So these are the fields. As you can see, the longest field is the problem statement. So we can make it all about the prospect's problem. The solution statement is very short and it only describes what we do. It's not describing any benefits. The benefits are actually described under sender competitive advantage. And then, of course, the results under sender social proof. And that's it. These are the fields, and you can run them now. And in the next video, I'll show you how to get your structure and very message-specific instructions, your length and your tone, even for every follow-up, into your Clay table.